In this video, I will introduce you to the Procure-to-Pay cycle. Then, we understand what are PO invoices and non-PO invoices and why the organizations will be doing some non-PO invoices. So PO here refers to purchase order, right? And then I will introduce you to the purchase orders form, and I will also introduce you to the journals form within finance and operations application, right? Fine. So let us see now the procure-to-pay cycle. Right. Typically, in the organizations, the procurement cycle starts with the purchase requisition. So purchase requisition, you can consider this as a purchase request where the different department users will prepare a request of the material that need to be purchased, and they will submit that particular request. Okay, so based on the organization's policies, that will go for the respective people for approval, and once that is approved, that is when it goes to the procurement team, the purchase department, to be able to purchase it from one of the available suppliers or else a new supplier. Okay, so in D365 terminology, you hear people calling that as a purchase requisition. Okay, then after the purchase requisition is created and let us say submitted, and it comes to the purchase team, right? So that is where the purchase team requests for a quotation, right? So why? Just think about it. The HR team raises a request to procure some laptops, okay? And we need at least 3 laptops, right? So then what happens? When it comes to the purchase team, it is not that they just go and pick it from one of the suppliers who is available in the market, right? So it is better that we get some quotation from multiple suppliers, right? So let us see what is the price that is available at different vendors. Then we buy it from the person who is giving at a lesser price, right? So that is where even in the businesses, they will do the request for quotation. Okay, so they request a quotation from multiple vendors available, and out of them they will finalize one supplier. Okay, so with the supplier that is finalized, we create a purchase order. So here when I say we, it is the purchasing team, so the purchasing agent or the buyer. Okay, so the buyer creates a purchase order to the particular vendor, okay, saying that we need 3 laptops and this is the price that we agreed and all that, and we confirm this purchase order to the supplier. Okay, upon receiving the purchase order confirmation, what the vendor does is he will let us know like what is the tentative date that he can deliver the goods, and that's it there. Okay, let us assume that the vendor confirmed that he will be delivering the goods in next 7 days. Okay, on the 7th day we're gonna receive the material, right? So there will be a person at the warehouse, right? So usually there will be receiving clerks who will be receiving the material. So they receive the material from the vendor and they do the product receipt in the system. So in D365 terminology, you call that as a product receipt. So we received the product, right? In general, you will also hear people calling that as goods receipt. Okay, so in D365 F&O, you do the product receipt to confirm that we received the material. Okay, and then after this product receipt is acknowledged, the vendor will send the invoice, right? So we receive the invoice from the supplier. So this is where the finance team involves into the process, right? And that is the reason I highlighted these two in a different color, so that you know that where exactly the finance related topics come into the play, right? So all of these, requisition, request for quotation, purchase order creation, and product receipt, so all of these are mainly the T&L topics. So again, you hear people calling that as T&L, right? So that is trade and logistics. At the same time, you also hear people calling that as supply chain management process. Okay, so all these processes here in blue color, those are supply chain management related processes, and invoice from the supplier and the payment to the supplier. So these are the ones related to the finance. Okay, so we receive the invoice from the supplier, and that is updated in the system. So the invoice is updated saying that we got the bill. Invoice is again nothing but a bill that we received from the supplier. Okay, so saying that we will have to pay him some $10,000 for the computers that we purchased, right? So we record that invoice in the system, right? And after that, so there will be certain terms of payment where we will have to pay the invoice within 30 days. That is the agreement between us as a company and the supplier. Okay, so within that 30 days you will do the payment to the supplier. Okay, so this is the procure to pay cycle, right? So do you think all of these steps are mandatory? Just think about the real business here, right? We talked about Contoso business. Contoso basically purchases the raw material and produces the audio and video related speakers and all that, right? TV speakers and car audio speakers and all that. So which means we already have the established suppliers, right? So it may not be possible that every time I go and request for a quotation from multiple suppliers, right? I might not do it every time. So we as a company, we might not do it every time because we have some existing agreements with certain vendors, and we straightforward go and create a purchase order with those vendors. So that is the reason sometimes the purchase process gets started directly with the purchase order creation, right? Because we know from whom we want to purchase the material, right? At the same time, there could be some cases where you will purchase certain services mainly without a purchase order. So just think about it. Especially in the organization, you can classify the purchases in two things. One is you purchase the products or you purchase services. Okay, so purchasing the products are something like purchasing the raw material and all that, right? And services, for example, we need the travel ticket to be booked by somebody, right? So we approach a travel agent and they give us a travel ticket, and all this information gets exchanged in email, and finally we get the travel tickets and we pay the vendor, right? So in that case what happens is that we may not create a purchase order and do the product receipt and all that, because literally we are not receiving any material there, right? So in such cases what happens is you will directly receive the invoice, right? Still you are liable to pay that invoice. So this is something that you will call as non-PO invoice, non-purchase order invoice, because you do not have a purchase order, correct? So like this, in the organization, sometimes the invoices will be related to the purchase order, and sometimes those invoices could be not related to the purchase order. Okay, so if in case the invoice is related to the purchase order, then we go to the purchase order and proceed with the invoicing. Okay, and if it is not related to the purchase order, that is where we enter those transactions using something called invoice journals. Okay, I will just quickly show you both of them, like how does the purchase orders form look like and how does the invoice journals form look like, right? So let me take you to the application. I am in the application now, and you click on the modules and accounts payable and all purchase orders, right? So when you open this form, you will be able to see the list of purchase orders that are available in the USMF company, right, in the demo data. So here you can see here, this is one purchase order that we created with Acme Office Supplies, and this is with another supplier, and this is with another vendor and all this. So you have your list of purchase orders that are created. Okay, so let me just open one of them. By clicking on this, I will be able to see the details of this purchase order, right? So you have the header part of it, which talks about your vendor information and all that. we will not be covering the purchase order creation process in this video. You will be taking a look at it in the next video. Okay, so but I just want to give you a quick understanding of this one here. So when you click on this lines section, scroll it down. So this is where you add the lines that you wanted to purchase. So when I say lines, that means the products, right? So you can see here we are purchasing this standard cabinet from this supplier, and how much is the quantity and what is the price that is agreed and all this, right? So this is the purchase order that is created, and eventually what happens is that we confirm this purchase order by going into this purchase and confirm. You will confirm the purchase order, then you will do the product receipt when you receive the material. Okay, and then this is where you will do the invoice. Okay, where once we receive the invoice from the supplier, the finance team, the accounts payable team, comes into the system and they select the purchase order and do the invoice from here. Okay, so this is with reference to the purchase order related invoices. Then what about the ones that are non-purchase order related, right? So let's just take a quick look at it. So throughout the application, across all the modules, you will have something called journals, right? So if you go to this accounts payable module, you have this invoice journals, right? When you open this, so this is the journal that you will use to record the non-purchase order related invoices. Okay, I will explain you this in detail in the coming videos. Okay, but just for a quick understanding, you come here and you create a new record and you get into the lines and you enter the vendor from whom we got the invoice and what is the value of the invoice. You put the credit here and to which account that it should get debited. Okay, what is that expense? So if it is a travel related expense, you're gonna choose the travel expense here and you will post this transaction. Okay, so you will understand this in detail in the next videos, where in the next video I will cover the purchase order creation process, and next to that we will look at the vendor invoice journal creation process. Okay, so just like how we have the invoice journals, we do have the payment journals. So you go to the accounts payable and you go to the payments, then here you have the vendor payment journal, right? So using this journal you will do the payments to the vendors. Okay, so similarly you do have the accounts receivable, and here if in case you have to do the payment to the customer, sorry, you have to receive the payment from the customer, then you use this customer payment journal, right? So we receive the payment from the customer and we enter this journal through which we will update our records saying that we received the payment from the customer and we have nothing due from this customer, right? So like that, you use journals in finance and operations system to record your transactions. Alright, so that's all for this session. So let us do a quick recap of what did we learn here.